Hello, everybody, and welcome to Late Night News with GoIndieNow. I am one of your co-anchors. I am Joe Compton, and to my left, to your right, as we discovered earlier, it's mirrored, it's backwards.
Backwards, and it freaks me out.
Tell everybody, say hello, Toby.
Hi, my name is October, also known as Toby, and I am also co-anchoring this evening. In case you couldn't tell by me being here.
I wanted to start tonight by having you tell us a little bit about yourself. Let everybody get to know you. And I know everybody who's in the chat so far already knows you. There's Tiffany, there's Vanessa, there's Anita. But tell everybody a little bit about yourself so that they get familiar with who you are and what you do.
I am primarily a fantasy writer, but I have also written YA, sci-fi, and historic romance. I write comics, and I am a LGBTQ plus sensitivity reader. So I read other people's manuscripts for queer content and make sure that it's respectful for the minority they're trying to represent.
That's awesome. I attended Toby's panel at Multiverse talking about other voices, and that was so amazing. I learned so much from that panel. It was one of my favorites of the con. But that being said, we're here to talk about news, and we've got a lot of it tonight. So with further ado, we're going to go right to the top story tonight, which is you all ready? Because it's here, everybody. AI is here. Uh-oh. Yes. Earlier this week, for whatever reason, Apple decided to kind of just sneak in the back door and quietly let everybody know that, hey, we're in the audiobook business too, and now we have AI narration. Audiobooks narrated by a text-to-speech AI are available via Apple Books service in a move with potentially huge implications for the multi-billion-dollar audiobook industry. They describe their new digital narration feature on its website as making the creation of audiobooks more accessible to all by reducing the cost and complexity of producing them for authors and publishers. They say that it represents a big shift from the current audiobook model, which is involving producers and narrators and authors narrating their own book set sometimes in a process that can take weeks and cost thousands for a publisher. Digital narration has the potential to allow smaller publishers and authors to put out audiobook at a much lower cost, according to the Apple website. It says the feature is initially only available for romance and fiction books, where it will list two available different voices, Madison in the female and Jackson in the male. Two more voices, Helena and Mitchell, are on their way for nonfiction books. And actually, they are in beta on the website. I was there earlier, and they are available there. So they are now available. The service is only available in English at present, and Apple was very oddly specific about the genres of books in its digital narrators that they are able to tackle. Primary category being romance or fiction, literary, historical, women's fiction are eligible. Mysteries, thrillers, science fiction, fantasy is not currently supported, is according to the website. So Apple is reportedly approaching independent publishers. They've been doing that. They've been secretly emailing and talking to independent publishers about offering to shoulder the production costs while they test out their beta through that. So that's a very interesting thing. And there's the Apple Books, if you wanted to see the little graphic I made. And they are trying to increase the payouts for royalties for authors and using a mediary in Findaway Voices, who, if you didn't know, if you are a member who has a Findaway Voices contract, you may want to pull up your contract right now and look at it, because Findaway Voices has a clause in there that says that they've been able to use Apple's beta testing program through Findaway Voices. So they could be testing using your book as a test model for these things. And that's part of the contract that Findaway Voices has. Apple, so that's one woe look out, right? Uh, and then Apple's approach to the digital narration is the opposite of its competitors, according to them, in Amazon, because Audible rules explicitly state that submitted audiobooks must be narrated by a human. At one point in time, they were allowing text to speeches, but apparently that they had some issues with copyright, and they stopped allowing that to be the case. So you're not allowed to use text to speech on an Audible book as at the present time. But in addition to Amazon and Apple, Spotify has been investing in making audiobooks their third pillar of its streaming service alongside their music and podcasts. But Spotify's audiobook ambitions are mainly made made have made headlines because it clashes with Apple's rules around the in-app payments, which Spotify claims are choking competition and are anti-competitive. So there's a little bit of cat fighting going on there. And during Spotify's first quarter investor earnings call, the alarm bells were ringing as investors questioned Spotify in how they were investing in their services. They made a huge investment in podcasting that Spotify made over the course of 2021 through into 2022, and announced it would be laying off about 6% of its workforce, which is about 600 employees, to offset these investments as shareholder prices dropped 60% over 2022. But the CEO, Daniel Ek, said that numbers are stabilizing, subscribers and listeners are up since the acquisition of Findaway Voices, and they're finding their footing. They all refuse to name a timeline as to when profits might shift, but they say that most investors think it will and are staying with them despite the company's new focus. X said Spotify is not going to stop making new investments in audiobooks and other areas. But he did say, and there's the quote if you want to read it, if you can, and I realize it was a bad font choice on my part. However, audiobooks aren't expected to have a big drag on the company's operating profits as podcasting had, because X said in part because Spotify's audiobook strategy doesn't require a great investment in original content. Yeah, they're using Findaway Voices, who is using Apple AI. That's why. And that it doesn't stop there, everybody. There's more. But wait, there's more. Because now the Frankfurt-based Bookwire has jumped into the fray and using their text-to-speech software called Way, which was their cleverly branded service for audiobooks called We Audiobook You, Way, W-A-Y, now developing their model. And on January 17th, they announced a global partnership with Google Books. So now Google Books and Bookwire are in bed together, and which was formerly known as Google eBooks. The intention is that Bookwire's media messaging puts it to provide auto-narrated audiobook creation and expand the offering of text-to-speech technology on an international level. Because right now everybody else is just doing it in English. They can do it in other languages. So they're trying to corner the world market, not just America or English-speaking countries. The new arrangement with Google says the company allows Bookwire customers in many parts of the world to produce an auto-narrated audiobook in various languages. Google Play Books, Bookwire's personnel say, has launched its auto-narrated audiobook production for English, Spanish, German, French, Brazilian, Portuguese so far. Using Google's technology, Bookwire then offers customers the means to create these books through the framework of the Way service. Bookwire's announcement says that the company manages the process for the clients, taking over complete production and quality assurance of these audiobooks. Both the production request and subsequent delivery of ready-for-distribution auto-narrated audiobooks are handled by the Bookwire OS. So basically, they're going to just be selling them on their site and Google. In a prepared statement on January 17th, the Bookwire business development lead in audio, Sylvain Krause, is quoted as saying that the cooperation with the leading technology company Google, we can add another provider to our TTS service, text-to-speech, which offers audio production with advanced AI. in multiple languages. Bookwire wants to give publishers even more diverse opportunities to participate in the growing audio market with the additional text-to-speech offer. So, wow, it's just blown up in the sky, and it is crazy and insane, and it's a race to see who gets there first, apparently. And
It's crazy because the first I heard about it was just like a little bit of in theory like a couple of weeks ago, and now it's just here.
yeah, it's just here. And you ready for this? Because is everybody ready? Because I have a sample of the Apple AI,
I'm so nervous.
both the female voice in Madison and the male voice. I forgot the name already. But Jackson, thank you. Yes, thank you. And so here you go. Hold on to your seats, everybody, because you're going to be blown away.
The bright aura that had always surrounded Allison was missing from this woman, and yet there was something achingly familiar about her. The woman raised a hand as though to wave at him. Or was that wishful thinking?
I looked up to find a wall of trees had materialized ahead of us. I hadn't noticed, because I'd been staring at my feet. I couldn't believe the fields actually had an end.
That is the actual AI, everybody.
I mean, it did really well.
Yeah, it's very scary how good that is.
Yeah, I expected it to sound like a little more auto-tuney, I guess.
Yep. There was that one little hiccup between whatever and tree, but I don't know what that was. But yeah, that wasn't me. That wasn't me messing with the audio. That was actually part of the audio that I recorded. So it was.
There were some very minor inflection issues as well, but like barely noticeable if you weren't looking for them.
And I tell you, I noticed it more with the male voice than I did the female voice. The female voice was really, really well done. I thought there was some actual inflection in that, and it was kind of like, whoa, okay. And I just took a little piece of that. They have the whole sample up on their website, and it's kind of insane. But yeah, so that is so the besides the AI sounding like it does, and what Apple's done, and what Spotify and Bookwire and Google Books are all about to do. The idea that Findaway Voices is kind of the catalyst for all of this, because they all use that program. Findaway Voices is kind of put itself in the middle, which is owned by Spotify, if you all didn't know that. Spotify bought it in 2021 in the end of November. So Spotify's kind of like got like a little bit of a leg into this thing, and it's kind of funny that they were allowing Apple. I don't know if it's just a diversion to Amazon and trying to fight it, but they all of them are using the same selling point, which is you don't have to do a damn thing. We're going to pay for it. We're going to do it all for you, and you just reap the reward, which to me is a big red flag. But
it's really clear that they're trying to get people to buy into this. I think it's because they know how controversial AI in creative spaces is right now. And so by making it free, they're purposely catering to those smaller authors who can't afford narrators in the first place to switch over and start the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Which is predatory and kind of creepy.
It is, yeah. And Anita said she opted out this week. Good for you, Anita. I'm glad you caught that. Hopefully, I don't know what that's about, but good to know that, yeah. And nice. I love Spotify. Actually, be nice to get some audiobooks on the platform to listen to. They have them there. They've been doing that. They've been doing the audiobook because they do run with Findaway Voices. So Findaway Voices puts everything on that as well. And if you do it through Smashwords, Findaway Voices then distributes to wherever Smashwords can distribute to. And I believe Spotify is one of those places. AI is so problematic for creatives of all stripes. I agree, AI is still a baby in tech world and has ways to go, but it'd be great for per market. And then Vanessa said that way better than I expected. Yeah, not bad, better than I expected. Yep. Yeah, Jinx. Okay, next time we're in the same place. All right, they're making drink plans. Though you should probably spell my name right if you want to drink. Oh, Richard, you done and messed up there. All right, I can't help you there. Hello, peeps. Find a Way Voices is expensive, and then
That was when I was saying it was predatory.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, it's very, I mean, it's here, guys. It's all here. So get ready because this is the thing that's probably going to take over 2023. I mean, this fight is just beginning. This is the first round of a 12-round heavyweight fight between 6 very powerful companies. And they're all going to have to find a way to, and I didn't mean that as a bad pun, but they're going to have to find a way to really, because the producers and narrators haven't weighed in on this yet, and they're scared to death of this technology, and rightfully so. And so if it sounds like that too, I don't know if Karina, if you heard it, I know you said it scares the shit out of me, but I just played a little bit of it. Go back and watch that after the show because you'll be blown away by how crazy it sounds. But the Fair Rights for Holders and Narrators group posted about Find a Way Voices clause a few days ago. I'm betting more authors will opt out as well. Yeah, they should. I mean that's a violation really of your rights, and I don't know. It's kind of interesting because you probably through Find a Way Voices spent a lot of time trying to find a good narrator. So
I think like it would be the smartest business move for one of these companies, just one, to be like, we stand with the narrators and we'll only ever use live narrators, and they'd sweep the market. They'd get so much traction, but I don't think any of them will do it.
Well, this reminds me a lot of, and I know this is probably not an apt analogy, but this reminds me a lot of during the revolution of the indie film world. When I was getting into the film world, there was this whole debate about shooting on film versus shooting digitally. And there was just a point when Hollywood couldn't ignore it anymore. It was cheaper, it was faster, it was much more efficient, and you could get the same look that you could get with film. Eventually that happened. I mean, there was filter after filter to try and do that, and it didn't look perfect. But now, like, you wouldn't know, nobody here would be able to tell the difference whether it was shot on film or if it was shot in digital, because they've mirrored one another so well. And it just really depends on the limit of your budget and your production that you're doing it. So this is kind of reminding me a lot of that we're not going to get away from it. If you want an audiobook out there, you may have to deal with this at some point, whether you want a narrator or not. And maybe it is a narrator. Maybe it's smart for narrators to maybe get involved with the AI and maybe lend their voice to it, or maybe they can add inflection or add something that would, kind of like, as you know, Toby, being in the comic book world, maybe like a colorist who adds the shadow and definition. Maybe the narrator could be that to the AI.
I could see that happening, but Vanessa made a comment that I also kind of agree with, that the difference between your comparison and this is that this is people's jobs that are going on, not just the status of the film. And even if narrators are still around to tweak it a little bit, that sort of thing, it's still taking away so much of their work and so much of their pay that so many of them are not going to have jobs anymore.
Well, I could tell you that it is actually more apt than you all think, because to run a camera that runs on film, you have several people who run that camera. The cameraman is not the one person that runs it. There's people who replace the magazines, who check the gate, who open the film, who run the film through the camera. Those people were replaced by the digital age. They no longer had jobs. So there is something to that a little bit. So,
yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I think that for a little while they're going to have, at least before this starts taking over more genres. I know why it can't do fantasy or science fiction. I think because of the weird words. Yeah. So people will have a job in those genres probably for a really long time.
Yeah, but I wouldn't there's some smart people who work at these places, Google and Apple, and they're going to figure it out. They're eventually going to figure it out, and it's going to sound like, I mean, eventually we're going to be driving in cars, and we're going to be taking Ubers where it's an AI running the Uber. It's like, that's scary, but
Yeah. I mean, they've got some good points for self-driving cars, like fewer accidents, things, if they ever get it right. But right now, they run into things just as often as we do, if not more. But still, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Chat GPT is getting traction all over. TikTok is getting traction everywhere right now, and that's a big. In fact, Congress was talking about it the other day, which is weird, but it's something. Yeah, I'm so crushed out. Yeah, neither will I. I won't even get in one. I won't be around one. I have enough problem with people who actually drive their cars. I don't need to have a problem with self-driving cars. Although I did see one park once, and it was very interesting, but it took it like 25 minutes to get into space, and because it was wanting to do it perfectly, so it was very weird. But yeah, I've seen it.
As soon as I'm not about to be hit by traffic.
Well, that was the worry, because it was parking in a pretty tight space. But anyway, yeah, me too. I'm too much of a control freak as well. I think us artists are kind of in that same boat. But anyway, so there you have it. AI is here. You all run for the hills, or embrace it and hug it. Whatever you do, just know that it's here, and it's gonna impact you one way or the other. So you have to figure it out. I mean, you're just gonna have to. It's gonna be part of the conversation. Just like the publishing industry never wanted to embrace ebooks, but they couldn't help it anymore. So but all right, Toby, you ready for your big story?
Yeah, it's a big story about the most impressive and strange forger I've ever heard of, in the publishing industry especially. So this story actually broke last year, but Filippo Bernardini, a 30-year-old man originally from Italy who worked for Simon & Schuster in London, made over 160 websites and emails impersonating publishers, agents, literary scouts, Booker Prize judges, editors, basically everybody in the publishing industry. He'd change like simple things in their email addresses or in the websites themselves. He'd use like an uppercase I instead of a lowercase L. He'd use an R and an N instead of a lowercase M. In emails where it's underlined, he'd use Q instead of G because you couldn't see the tail because the line would cross it. So he'd do little things like that and made over 160 websites, and ran a couple of phishing schemes with them where like he'd tell people to log into their information on his site and they'd enter their passwords so he could get in databases and look at all these manuscripts. And he had access to over 1,000 manuscripts. Like he just kidnapped them. And then they just charged him. He pleaded guilty to one count of wire fraud on January 6th in the New York federal courts. He's agreed to pay restitution of $88,000 or $88,000. And he's going to be charged on April 5th. His maximum potential sentence is 20 years in prison, and he does still have a chance to be charged with 2 years for each case of identity theft, but he didn't plead guilty to that. So I'm not sure what's going down with that. So we might have more to update on April 5th. Yeah. Even weirder, nobody knows what this guy was doing with all of these manuscripts. He took them all and did nothing. He didn't they didn't show up anywhere. They weren't ransomed, they weren't sold, they weren't printed, they weren't put on the dark web, nothing. He just had them.
Yeah.
And
we talked about this last year, but yeah, it's weird. It's so weird. It's like, I don't know if that was like he just wanted status, or
theories are saying that he was using it to get ahead in the publishing industry by being able to talk about all of these, manuscripts and books that people weren't supposed to really know about to get himself higher in the circles. Other theories say that he was trying to use it to get more translation work, and prove to these industries that he could do more translation work, because that's what he did for the most part, was translate out of Chinese and Korean mostly and into English and Italian, even though his English apparently was not that great.
Yeah.
And like, this was such a sophisticated scheme that like he'd get a hold of emails from the people he impersonated and copy everything down to the signature, down to their fonts that they chose, like the pictures they put in their bios, and then like the way they typed, he would mimic that as well. But if you caught him at it, apparently if you responded and were like, you don't seem like the right person, he'd get really like aggressive about it. And then most people were like, okay, this is definitely not my person. And they knew
it's
he
like
was there.
sociopathic behavior. It's weird.
And they knew he was there. They actually had like kind of a serial killer name for Bernardini for years. From 2016 to 2022, when he was arrested, they called him the Spine Collector, which is the most terrifying name I've ever heard for somebody who is a forger.
That's what Simon Schuster is going to call his book when he writes a book about it, no doubt.
Right. Simon and Schuster actually did not have any blame or anything in this. They were found to be of no wrongdoing. They were just as shocked as everybody else that this person worked with them. I'm also really impressed at how he got arrested. We were talking about this a little bit beforehand, but he's a London resident. He lives overseas. The FBI knew who he was, but couldn't arrest him because in order for the FBI to arrest somebody on foreign soil, they have to have permission from Congress has to be like, yeah, go get him. And the foreign country has to give permission. And Congress didn't really care about a person who took manuscripts and did nothing with them. So they had to wait for him to come to America. And he got flagged on a flight that landed in JFK in New York City. And so he landed at JFK Airport and the FBI arrested him as soon as he stepped off the plane. He was there to go on vacation with his partner. And clearly that did not work out for him.
Yeah, that's a terrible vacation. Vacation anyway. But I mean, he did it to himself. So I mean, that's just the way it is. But yeah, it's at that point Congress was too busy trying to kill abortion. But that's a whole other. But yeah, gosh, it's so uniquely weird and interesting and intricate, but the same token, it's kind of like scary how easily he was able to do all this too. I mean, he stole from famous people. I mean, Margaret Atwood, know,
Ethan Hawke, Sally Rooney.
Yeah, I mean, being in Simon and Schuster, you kind of get that. I'm surprised that our friend Mr. King didn't get hit with that because he's with Simon and Schuster, right? I think so, but
I like what Richard
he might be
said
with
in the comments. He's on a staycation now.
But yeah, he's gonna get 20 years. He's pleaded guilty, so it's kind of just an odd. Yeah, he's on staycation.
They're looking for the maximum sentence in this for sure, and they are, according to some sources, are still trying to pursue the identity theft option. He did a lot of damage to people's reputations by impersonating them and then getting aggressive with people. He was targeting like authors of all stripes too, not just these big names, but fresh authors who didn't know any better. And these authors would show up at conferences and confront these agents and publishers and editors and be like, so you asked me for my manuscript and then you were really mean to me. And they're like, who are you? I don't remember this. Like, so they were having issues of that nature and of people coming up and being like, thanks so much for buying my book. And they're like, we didn't. And so it's thrown everything into chaos for so long. Yeah.
This was a wild story when it first came out. And I remember reading it and going, "Oh my god! I mean, how are they gonna figure all this out?" He's probably got stuff buried that nobody knows that he has too, and so it's kind of like, I mean, that's kind of the bad idea of these big publishers and slush piles and things of that nature, not going through proper channels and being logged in and properly, cataloged and things like that. And hopefully this changes their process a little bit, but I doubt it. I doubt they even care. but
I mean, they didn't change it anytime between 2016 and 2022. So
yeah.
when it was happening actively.
Yeah. So I mean, but they didn't know. To be fair, they didn't know till last year that this was the
That
mindset
widespread.
behind it.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, it's an odd story, and he's gonna get his just due and spend a lot of time in jail. I mean, he's gonna be in the camp jail, so he's not gonna have to worry about anything. But he'll have cable TV still, so probably find a way to steal HBO while he's in.
He'll forge the prison
Yeah.
send off in a couple emails. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the ironic thing is he's going to get a book deal out of this. That's the ironic thing. I mean,
Well, especially because he won't talk.
Yeah.
Because
he knows.
Clearly won't say anything about why.
Yeah.
Everybody's been asking him, and he hasn't said a word.
Yeah.
If I did all this stuff, if I was this much of a little criminal mastermind, I'd be like, you want to know my evil plan? I'll start monologuing, but
yeah, I mean, he's gonna make so much money on the book deal, and then he's gonna make money on the movie when they make the movie out of it, and it's just because this is just so strange. It's one of those. This I can see Hollywood just eating this up. So
yeah, it's like the. That one movie about the other guy, Catch Me Now or something.
Yeah, Catch Me If You Can.
Catch Me If You Can. That's the one.
But he turned out to be a good guy at the end. So
that's true. And Bernardini doesn't have.
Yeah,
that
maybe he'll help. Maybe he'll help people figure out how he did it. Tell people how he did it, and he can help the FBI figure out to catch others. I don't know. I'm sure he's not the only one that steals.
Could be.
But who knows? But what I do know is that we have an awesome marketing tip this month, and CL Cannon is going to tell you about an Amazon feature you may not know about. You may know about it, but she's going to tell you all about it and how you can access it and everything like that in this wonderful 6 minutes. So enjoy that, and we'll be back with more stories. We got a couple more stories for you to round out the evening, and we will be back right after this, so enjoy.
Hey guys, CL Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you your monthly marketing tip. Today I'm going to be talking about this new feature that Amazon has given us. Yes, they have given us something. That's after they took away all of our Amazon author page and all the really cool stuff on there that we really liked about it. They redesigned it, but they did give us this thing called book recommendations. Today I'm going to be telling you about how to take book recommendations and send those to your Amazon followers, which will in turn help you make more sales. Okay guys, we're here on our Amazon Author Central page. So when you first log in, if you haven't pressed these yet, you're going to see up here, new to Author Central, book recommendations is available. Now, of course, they have completely changed up how our author pages look on the US site. I suspect they'll be going to the UK site and making that change soon, as well as other country storefronts. But one of the things they did give us after taking all that other stuff away is the book recommendations. Now, if you don't see this at the top of your page, you can go up here to reports and marketing, and it will be right here at the top. Let's see, book recommendations. Connect with your readers by adding book recommendations that help them learn more about you and guide them on the next best book to read. So we're going to go in and create a recommendation. And right here, we can recommend books that we've written, or we can recommend books by other people, other authors. Okay, so let's start with my most talked about book. I'm going to say my most talked about book is, let's see. We're going to say this one. And we're going to hit submit. Now, this is what it's going to do for you. Your book recommendation has been added and will appear on your author page within 1 day. Submit at least 3 new book recommendations, your books or books by other authors, and we will consider sending your recommendations via email. So what this means is if you do fill out at least 3 of these, either under the ones that you have written or the ones that other authors have written, they will consider sending an email out to your Amazon followers. Now, this is really important because it's a lot different than you sending an email out from your newsletter. because Amazon is a trusted brand. And being a trusted brand, it has incredible deliverability and incredible open rates. So anytime someone gets something from Amazon, they're most likely going to open it, which means they're going to see all these recommendations. Okay, my book I wish more readers knew about. We're going to do Unknown Realms. That was a really great portal fantasy book. I really love my story in it. There's lots of other good stories in it, but we just never picked up a bunch of publicity for whatever reasons. And I wish more people knew about this one. Okay. If you're new to my work, I recommend starting with, I'm going to say The Devil You Know, because there is a prequel story in there for one of my other books. If you want to get lost in a story, I recommend my book. I'm going to go with Ink and Incantations because that's one of the favorite stories I've ever written, and I think it is easy for readers to get lost in it. All right. Now let's go down here to recommend books by other authors. So I think my books are kind of similar sometimes to Holly Black's books. Oops. So we're going to search her name. And I'm going to just choose, I'll just choose the box set of Folk of Air. Okay, a book I couldn't put down. I know exactly what I'm going to do for this one. Remember the Ashes is one of my favorite series. It is amazing. If you haven't read it yet, you definitely should. And that's why I'm going to tell my followers about it. Okay, a book that left an impression on me. This has to be Lord of the Rings. Made a huge, huge impression on me. I'm going to select this awesome little special edition. Voila. So now, within a day, these should be posted on my Amazon author page, and they should send these out in a newsletter to my followers. So, and you can come in and delete and change these whenever you want to. So if any of these answers change, you can always edit them. If you want to recommend other authors' books like on a regular basis, you can definitely do that. Hopefully, I'd really like to see Amazon put more questions in here for readers that we can send out to. I'm really hoping that there are more tools that they add that help us interact with our readers and our followers in this way. Okay, I've went ahead and gone to my Author Central page on the US site. And if we'll go up here and we see how they redesigned this, I'm not a big fan. But they've redesigned it, but we can go up here and on our About page, here's your bio now. You don't have your RSS feed like you used to have, but here already are my book recommendations. You can see them all on here. Okay, that's all for me this month. I hope I've been able to help you. Remember, if you have any questions, you can always email me at info@fiction-atlas.com, or you can visit me on my website or on my social media and message me there. I'm always happy to help anyone who has a marketing question or bookish questions in general. Or if you just want to chat, I'm down for that too. I hope you have an amazing month, and I will see you next time. Bye.
So there you go, everybody. The marketing tip for February. AF Stewart said, yeah, Amazon went all basic on us, but the recommendations is nice. Karina says, already using it. Can't say it's giving me some more sales, but only time will tell. And Vanessa says, clearly I'm weird because I hardly ever open Amazon's emails. And she mentions that it was awesome. So, all right. Looks like a pretty cool thing, but looks like more work.
I'm like, I don't even really have anything out yet. You know, my book is coming out later this month. So I can't recommend anything. I don't have anything. I can recommend other people's work though, so I might go and do that.
Well, you have the joint book that you did, right? So you have that. You could recommend that for sure. You know,
it's just so outside of what I write for everything else that it's been really hard to market that particular book.
That's the thing, right? You want to brand yourself too. You want to make sure that this is a branding opportunity as well, right? So, you know.
I think I'm going to wait a couple more weeks.
And hopefully maybe they'll change the design because it looks like Goodreads. It's terrible. I have if you don't know Toby, I have a real aversion to Goodreads. I'm not.
I do now.
It's a running joke here on GoIndieNow. Yeah, I'm not a fan at all. I think it's been an antiquated site for quite a long time. So, but that being said, we do have some more news, and we have another defection amongst the big five, and Toby's here to tell you all about that and what happened.
Yep. So our big story for this evening is that Madeleine McIntosh, who became the CEO of Penguin Random House in 2018, is leaving as soon as they find a replacement. They announced the change on Tuesday, but staff found out in a memo from McIntosh herself the day before. So she's not the only one to leave Penguin Random House. In fact, in the past 2 months and 2 days, they have lost 3 of their top operators. There was that big famous court case that we've all heard about where Penguin Random House tried to put in a bid to buy out Simon & Schuster, one of their biggest rivals. They lost on antitrust and unfair competition grounds, and that loss cost them $200 million in termination fees, and that's not including like the enormous legal costs that they racked up. Yeah. As soon as that happened, Marcus Dole, who was the global CEO of Penguin Random House and who oversaw the acquisition attempt, he resigned as soon as Penguin Random House decided not to appeal the judgment. And then a few weeks later, about 3 weeks later, Gina Santerelli, who's the head of the Random House Publishing Group, president and head operator, she quit in early January. And now it's been about 3 weeks, and Madeleine McIntosh has put in her, set down her hat and decided to step out of the ring. She says that she just doesn't feel like staying in one place or performing one profession for a really long time is a good fit for her. Her past 5 years may have been short, but they were intense, and that the merger has no bearing on her decision to retire. And per this quote here, she's like, having new leadership in place, it's a great way to pivot and put all of us forward. I think that's mildly suspicious.
Yeah. Sure.
Especially because like Penguin Random House is in kind of a difficult place right now. During that court case, they said that they were losing ground in the publishing industry. They were losing market share. And Publishers Weekly actually has weighed in on all of this and says that it believes that the step down of Madeleine McIntosh is because of the merger as well. Yeah. Considering like she's saying that she doesn't know what her next move is, but she's been in the publishing industry since the early 1990s. And the fact that she is trying to pivot completely away from the publishing industry now kind of says that she's maybe a little rattled. This definitely did not end the way she wanted it to. The interim global CEO of Penguin Random House, Nihar Malavia, says that he knows changes like this create unease, and he's going to work with McIntosh and get as a successor named for the U.S. branch of Penguin Random House as soon as possible. And she's just going to hold on until then. They're hoping to find the right fit before she steps down.
She was there 30 years. That's a lifetime at a publishing house,
Mm-hmm. Except for an 18-month stint where she worked at Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to test the waters, I guess, if you're...
Yeah. And she started there as an assistant to like an assistant, and worked her way up through the ranks to CEO. And so it's very interesting that she's like, oh, I never want to like stay in the same job or industry, and then stayed in it for 30 years.
Yeah, there's synergy to all of our stories usually, and I have a feeling that we have a synergy that we don't know yet. And all this audiobook stuff and all these things that are happening, they're going to need some anchoring from some heavyweights in the publishing industry to kind of ease people into believing into this and putting this in there. And one of the things that Madeleine was responsible for was, taking authors to the next level in their branding and putting them, front and center, as opposed to just putting the book front and center, which is how it used to be back in the early days, right? And the author would be penniless and broke until they were dead, and then all of a sudden they would be famous when they were dead. And that's kind of, Madeline was responsible for changing that in a lot of ways. She became kind of like a PR person that kind of let the personalities of the authors shine a little bit. And so I don't know. I just have this funny, sneaky suspicion that she has something lined up. She knows what she's going to do next. And it might be the right time for that, right? So
I think she's not stepping away from the publishing industry. I think she's stepping into something that she feels will be better for her, help her regain that reputation after the craziness that went down in the case. Specifically, Dole made comments on the stand that were sort of passive aggressively aimed at Santerelli and McIntosh, and then all of them are now gone.
Yeah, he was all over the place with his weird testimony. I mean, we talked about it in length about how he just ripped on indies, and like, indies weren't even involved in this. What are you talking about, dude? You know, it's like, it's so weird. And I, the interesting thing too, and Vanessa put in a comment here. She said it'll be really interesting to see what she does. A lot of these folks, they see the potential in running their own firm and running their own business and go indie. A lot of times, I've seen a lot of big heavyweight people who've been in with Simon and Schuster and HarperCollins go their own way, start their own publishing firm. It happens every day. Like, if you read Publishers Weekly, there's one or two new indie book publishers popping up, and it's not by accident. These are people who've been in the business a long time, who know how to publicize themselves and get themselves out there. And
McIntosh is actually responsible for some of them.
Yeah.
Some sources say that she went through and she fired and laid off a bunch of people who then went out and started their own presses and became competitors. She's like created her own competition, and now she wants to go and be that competition, I think. And
I mean, the time might have just been right, that this whole thing blew up in their faces, and she's like, yeah, make me the scapegoat. I'm happy to do that. Get me out of this, get me out of this Titanic before it sinks into the ocean.
I'm hoping that Penguin Random House doesn't go completely under. They did just sell Prince Harry's new book. They sold like 1.4 million copies on the first day. So fingers crossed that they're at least gonna be okay. Not like, ooh, but like,
The other running joke on this show is that we think their name sucks, and it should really be Random Penguin House.
That's true. That is true. That's not even a debate.
I think all their problems stem from the fact that they call it Penguin Random House instead of Random Penguin House. But
I mean, when I read it like that, I picture like this penguin, and every time you go to visit him, he's just got a different house.
He's hanging out with Stephen King in one, and then Random, I will die on that hill. We have fun with that every time we talk about him. But and we've talked about him a lot on the show recently. But it's very. I mean, the funny thing is, if Dole didn't bring up indies, we would have been like, okay, who cares? Another big company buying another big company. But he decided to attack everything, and it was like, why? What are you doing? Even the prosecuting attorney was like, I don't understand this. What are you doing? What are you talking about?
I mean, that was most of the news that came out of that trial in the first place. All of these people were like, well, we don't actually know how many books we sell. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? Isn't that your entire job? So the more I hear about this trial, the more I'm just like, wow. And the fact that it's still having repercussions, even now, when it's been out of the news for a while, it finds a new way to pop back up every 3 weeks. Apparently, 3 weeks from now, I'm wondering if we're going to hear about somebody else bailing out.
Well, there was talk that HarperCollins was going to jump into this thing, but they had a better look at it, and they decided to kind of stay the course for now. But the conglomeration of all of these companies is coming. We're going to have one big publishing house eventually, and it's just going to be like, it's crazy because that's just the way our universe works right now. But it's like, I don't know. It seems like we got a blessing here, and like other companies got to see what happens when you mess with the government a little bit and try to do your own thing and try to become a, you know, uh, your own bureaucracy, really. And this is what happens, right? So, we'll see. We'll see if it bears fruit, and I'm sure Penguin Random House. See, I said it incorrectly but correctly. Uh, is going to be fine because they've got heavy hitters. They own most of the market share anyway right now, so they're still on top in that respect. So
That is true.
all right. So last story tonight we're going to talk about. And I know I'm probably going to lose a bunch of you, but hey, look, I got to talk about my people, and that's the indie film world. And Slam Dance and Sundance and Park City just happened, which was something that was really exciting for the industry because the industry was hoping that by them going back in person that there would be an uptick and there would be some excitement that would happen because it's been pretty dead lately, and the indie film industry has been really, really hampered by box office and being destroyed by box office. I mentioned this, I think, either last month or a month before that I had been to a movie theater and there was 15 movies playing and 7 of them were the same movie. They couldn't mix in an indie film in the middle of that. I didn't understand that, but I get it because nobody's going to them. And so, one of the things that helped the indie film community survive COVID, the pandemic, was there was the streaming services boomed and everybody turned to streaming services and everybody watched everything. So they had to find something else to watch. And so indie film became that something else. And they were, so the streaming services became the dominant buyers of the niches, these niche movies pre-pandemic. But now they're starting to buy less and they are uncertain that the indie box office, which is what they're trying to do, a lot of these, MGM and all these companies, Castle Rock, what used to be Castle Rock and now is DreamWorks, and all these places are trying to buy films so that they can have a theater run as well as a life after theater run, which is the typical model, and it's always been that way. And they're just not sure that these movies can leg it out on the big screen, especially if they're very dark and depressing, like most indie films have been. So they are trying to see how the deal making was going to affect them here at Sundance this year and in Park City. There's some great quotes here. It says, it should be an interesting year at Sundance. A lot of distributors are very curious to see what appetite will be from streamers and how it translates to traditionally buzzy deals. So that was Kyle Greenberg, the head of marketing and distributor at Utopia, a very well-known marketing firm that helps indie films get put out there. You got great films in the marketplace, he said, but the streaming landscape continues to evolve very quickly. And I think that means that there can be some difficulty finding a path to profitability on projects and obvious pickups as recent as 2 or 3 years ago. He said that hopefully it levels the playing field and lets indie distributors come in on projects they may not have had access to. So basically, having the smaller firms come in and buy these up so that they can produce them and make money on their own a little bit and have, and that is how the industry became so well known. Is indie film industries had these little buyers that would bring this up and then send them out, over across the world and make money. And that the studios paid attention to that and they started creating their own little indie film divisions and putting that together. And then you had companies like Miramax and companies like that were making headway by buying all these things up and putting them out there like all of the other traditional formats were doing and winning over crowds. And, Kevin Smith, Tarantino, these are all people that were born out of that, level of what we're talking about. So, part of the reason why indie film has struggled in theaters is because a lot of them have their own decisive power in terms of their art form. So they've been doing like 3-hour documentaries or 2.5-hour depressing movies, and nobody after COVID wanted to go and see those kind of movies. And they were very, and you know, Marvel movies have a hard time making it with 3.5 hours. Sometimes there's a lot of people who criticize Marvel for that aspect of what they do too. So for indie films to do that, that was a really, really harsh reality for a lot of indie filmmakers, and putting that out there like that. So what they've been saying is that one of the attractive qualities among several of the titles this year at Sundance and Slamdance were that many of them clocked under 2 hours. I saw a lot of films at Slamdance that were even almost an hour long or 75 minutes long. So I know that for a fact that I rarely saw a movie that was over 2 hours. So with those lengthy runtimes too, with the art house film community where they only have 3 theaters, you can only run 2 or 3 screenings a day. Whereas if you had like a 70-minute film, you could run like 10 or 15 of them, or 5 or 6 of them. 10 or 15 is a little much, but 5 or 6 of them, you get what I'm saying. And then you got Apple, who's making their own content, Amazon, who decided to make their own content. So a lot of that is a lot of what they were buying, the originality that they were buying, they're not buying anymore because they're making their own. They've latched on to the people that they bought from, and they're asking them to make more. Mindy Kaling is a great example. Mindy Kaling's out there making a ton of stuff for Netflix and Amazon, and she's been able to set her feet there, and every idea she has, they're going to make because it makes them money. So, that's something that they're looking at. So, but the bigger studios have stepped up. There was one deal made in Sundance so far. It was a big deal, but they're saying that there's going to be a residual effect to this, so this may linger for a while, and we'll start to see as Cannes comes up, and then Toronto and all these other film festivals, these big, Austin and South by Southwest is happening in March. That we'll see if that brings the momentum back. But for indie filmmakers out there who are watching this, or people who want to be in indie film, the idea is, you want to make your movie under 2 hours. You want to make it not as dark as you want it to be. Maybe add a little bit of lightness to it a little bit. Maybe have a little bit of humor or something in there, that companies will gravitate towards. And I think you'll get a deal if you do that. I mean, you hate to write to market. You hate to put it out there. But there are ways in which you can still have your own voice and vision and still tailor it to what is being told out there. And it's not to say that, your dark and brooding film, that's 110 minutes might make it out there. You might be the exception to the rule, but if everybody's thinking that, you may have to tailor your own stuff to kind of make it work. But this is something that the music industry went through a few years ago and is now kind of coming out of. It's this incorporation and working together with the big studios and the big distribution companies, and kind of working in kismet instead of working against one another and fighting a battle on each side, which I think the publishing world, and this is where I'll bring everybody back in here, I think the publishing world's headed toward that right now. And I think the hybrid is the model place to be. I think if you're a hybrid author, I think you're going to be much more comfortable than you are if you're truly all indie or all traditional, because the marketplace for you in traditional space, I know a lot of traditional authors who handle their own ebook stuff because the traditional model place doesn't want to deal with that. So they have their own ebook rights, and really the traditional model place really just wants your book rights so that they can sell it as a movie. And that's where they make their money. So, I think there's going to be a happy medium, and I think if you're in the middle there, I think you're going to be okay. That's how I feel. But as Vanessa says, hybrid is definitely the way to go.
And
what do you think, Toby?
True.
Yeah.
Because tradition builds the audience, but indie gives you the freedom.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you can still have both. I think you can have the best of both worlds, and I think any film is now coming to that realization that they're going to have to tailor themselves to a marketplace. I mean, it is a business after all, and that's what you have to think about. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. And it's one thing to go out and say, "Oh, I'm going to go make my movie," or "I'm going to go write my book," and put it out there. But if there's no market for it, you just did it for yourself, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's people who do that, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's the way you're okay with that. But if you want an audience, if you want to build, an audience, and get 1,000 followers on TikTok like Toby just did, yay, and do all that, you need to tailor yourself as a business and market, and put yourself into a marketplace and find your niche, because there is a niche for you. Even if you don't think there is one, and you can find it. And I think that's what indie film is really facing right now. So we'll see what happens. But I have to say, October, this has been a wonderful, wonderful time. I'm so happy you joined me, Toby. It's so great. You were fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
I hope you come back and do it again, because we would love to have you do it anytime you want to do it. And it's been a great show. We've packed a lot in here, but it's time for us to say goodnight. And in doing so, we do that. And how do we do that, Toby? How do we say goodnight?
It's always time to go indie now.
That's right.